We've got, just in time, Sarah, thank you. Bang on. We've got quite a bit to get through this morning and we need to keep to time. So we're reopening the meeting that we adjourned on the 25th, and we have apology from the Mayor and okay, the Mayor for absence and Tyler for lateness. Do I have a mover for that? Tim, seconded. Mark, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, that's carried. And we've got Jake and James on Zoom this morning. So, morning Zoomies.
And
So I think,
Pauline on an apology as an early departure.
okay, what time are you leaving? 9:10?
Quarter to 11.
Okay, then.
Quarter to 11.
Well, can we put those into the apologies? Thank you. Okie doke. So we go straight into the, just a reminder, if you have any declarations of interest, to be vigilant and declare that. Okay, we'll go right into the submissions and welcome Glenn Curry this morning. How are you, Glenn? Nice to see you. So you have 5 minutes.
Yes. Right. Tēnā koutou. Atamarie, ko Glenn aho. I'm Glenn Curry. I'm a transportation engineering researcher. I specialise particularly in sustainable transport and road safety, particular interest in active mode travel and speed management. You've probably read my submission already. Know that I wholeheartedly support what we are doing here. This photo here is actually just down the end of my street, one of the recent 30 school zones. Really pleased to see that, and pleased to see, in fact, my street's going to be a 30 school zone as well coming up. I just wanted today to add some additional safety evidence. You've heard some already from the staff about the safety implications of this, so I just wanted to talk about a few other things. So I guess one of the questions is whether lower speeds have worked before. We've got lots of overseas evidence. We do already do before and after crash analyses here in New Zealand and Christchurch as well. Some of you may be familiar with the Central City 30k zone that was analysed a few years ago compared with the rest of the Central City. Still showing some really good reductions in crashes and injuries. But the argument could be made, well, these are largely suburban areas that you're talking about today, so what about in your suburban areas? So I took the opportunity to have a look at 3 recent suburban lower speed areas. So Addington, Sumner and Papanui, all a few years ago they were introduced, so enough time to see what's happening already. And because of course we've had a few crazy things like COVID and lockdowns and so forth, I used a nearby control area to sort of compare and see what we would expect to happen as well. So for example, if the control crashes or injuries went up, then we'd probably expect the crashes and injuries to go up in the speed side as well. If it went down, you'd expect them to go down as well. So same with Addington West, that was done back in 2018. So that was sort of the area to the west of Selwyn Street there. 40k zone was introduced. So I looked at the zone to the east of Selwyn Street as a comparison site there. Got some crash data to before and after the change that happened there. And when we look at the difference between what we'd have expected to have seen in terms of crashes and injuries and what actually happened, we saw some really good reductions. So 69% reduction in crashes and 88% reduction in injuries compared to what we'd expect based on the control area there. So that's pretty promising.
It's massive.
Sumner, that was introduced back in 2019 there, mixture of 40 and some 30k zones. So I went around the bay to Red Cliffs as sort of the control area for that one, which hasn't changed. Again, pretty good results, 12% down on crashes, but definitely a big jump down in injuries there, 56% reduction in those. Similar story in Papanui. So the streets around the Northlands Mall area got introduced to 30k's a while ago. Sissons Drive used to be 40k's beforehand. Everything else was 50, so that's all gone down to 30. So I looked at the other area to the west of that, sort of around Langdon's Road and the streets there, which is still 50. Again, not a big drop in crashes, about 9% on crashes, but again, injuries, a really big reduction there, 44%. So that's pretty promising. So just some remarks on this. If you looked closely at the numbers, you would have seen they're not big numbers, 1 or 2 crashes or injuries a year. So for each area, they're not necessarily big, but collectively, if we're talking about the whole city, then we start taking a big difference. And you are doing a big chunk of the city, so you're going to make a big difference there. You would have noticed too that the biggest savings when injuries reduce. All right, and that's really down to, even if we don't reduce the crashes, they become less severe crashes as well, and that's pretty important. There's some concern I've seen about people won't comply strictly with the new limits. They won't do 30 Ks and so forth. That's actually not the critical key here. It's really whether people are going slower than they were before. And you will see some speed reduction. That evidence is seen around the world in the country. So you'll get some reductions in speed and you get the safer outcomes from that, like we saw in those areas there. Okay, and of course, this is just one reason. Safety is a big reason, but there's a whole bunch of other reasons that I know your staff and others have alluded to that we've got to keep reminding ourselves why we're doing these things. And that's me. Happy to take any questions in the time available.
Probably got time for one. We've got 36 seconds. Yanni, just quickly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was just a question of clarification on the graph.
Yep.
What are you comparing the percentage reduction to for the control area? I didn't get what the orange box in the middle is.
So the orange box in the middle is what would have happened to the area that did get its speed changed if the crash patterns were the same as what happened in the control area. So if the crashes in the control area went up between the before and after, then you'd expect the crashes in the speed limit area to have gone up as well if nothing else had changed. So the fact they went down is telling us the speed limit's doing something. Basically, that's sort of a standard way we analyse crash safety.
Great. Thanks very much for doing all that work on this, Glenn. It's really helpful. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
Right. So I'd like to welcome Dave Kelly from the Beckenham Neighbourhood Association.
Yeah, whole areas come in, whole board area.
Morning.
Morning, Kia ora. Just like to say, firstly, thanks very much for the chance to come along and just say, you know, in Beckenham, we really appreciate all the efforts council do. You seem to mainly hear from people when they're complaining, but actually there's a lot of good stuff going on. So thank you for that. So you've got the submission, and essentially what I want to do is just sort of emphasise a key point here. We support the move here. During consultation, it changed from the Beckenham Loop being part 30 and part 40. It's now changed to all 30. And in fact, we had tried a couple of years ago to get, it was reduced to 40, and we'd argued during that process about whether it should be 30 or not, and the traffic engineers wouldn't have it. So, and I spelled out in the submission here that we don't have unanimous support for that, and I'm sure you've had this, that people are arguing both ways, but we do have quite clear majority support. And I found the live map that people could comment on, the number of comments we were getting in our area. There'd be sort of 31 in favour of being slower and 5 opposed and so forth. So the one and that's driven really by Beckenham being an area where there's a lot of kids and there's some local schools, and it's really about safe travel to school. And partly because parents are worried about the roads being too busy for kids to walk, then you get a traffic jam of cars outside Beckenham School and so forth. And Beckenham grows both sides of Tennyson Street, and Tennyson is quite a barrier to getting kids across, and that's been a concern in the Beckenham neighbourhood area as long as, well, for longer than I've been in Beckenham. And that relates to the key point I wanted to make, which is about the difficulty of having a real patchwork of speeds. And I think it's improved through the consultation process, and what's up on the screen now is better. But there's still, I think, it's the treatment of the sort of what you might think of as minor arterial roads, or I think maybe that's exaggerating their traffic role. But I think in our area, particularly Tennyson Street, but also Summerfield, Selwyn, Strickland, are all still allocated, said to be proposed for 50, but they nearly all have schools on them, and so there are part-time or full-time sort of slower zones outside the school. And so going up Selwyn Street, you'd be going from 30 to 50 to a part-time 30 outside the school, back to 50, back to 30, back to 50, and that's just going up Selwyn from the bottom to the top. And I think that's this concern in our group, our residents, about the difficulty of keeping track of what actually an area is going to be. And so what would I'd like to suggest here is that maybe in a few areas as an experiment, just sort of do more of a blanket thing and just have people say this is a suburban area and actually the whole thing is 30 and you just know there's houses around here and you're not on one of the busy roads. And I think that's a line that you have to draw somewhere, and I think at the moment maybe it's a bit too cautious. And perhaps if you want to try somewhere and just see how it works, you know, for Beckenham, Tennyson Street is proposed to be 50 and a couple of little streets coming off it, and the stuff either side up on Southampton and down into the loop are both for 30. Now that 30 is really going to help with getting kids to school and so on, but if they can't get across Tennyson Street, then they still won't be walking or going on their bikes. And the community board has just, towards the end of last year, approved a plan to put in some slowing things on Tennyson. So I think they're called road pillows at the points where there are crossing points there, and that'll be a help. And it seems sort of mad to say Tennyson should be 50 at the same time was trying to slow the traffic down there. And actually, Tennyson was just dug up for a water main. Another great thing the council's doing. Thank you. Nobody ever says thank you for these things. The water's going to stay on. You know. And so Tennyson was closed. And traffic has sort of got around there, and I think Selwyn and Summerfield as well. Rather than having a patchwork, just slow them down to 30, and I think people get used to it, and it's really relaxing. I'm almost out of time, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, look, Tim, just quickly, yep.
Just with Tennyson Street, because those feeder roads, if you like, you know, for other communities going through ours. What would you think about, say, Tennyson Street and those lights being, say, permanently 40 k's, because it would bring the overall speed down? What are your thoughts on that, rather than 30?
I think it would be an improvement,
Yep.
but you know, I think the real thing is that the speed it takes to get across town isn't actually determined by that road sign, generally speaking. It's by the intersections and the crossings and the road pillows and the kids there and traffic and so on. And I think actually people are just too busy thinking about all of that to be noticing the road signs. And I think if we could just say, and actually 30, it makes so little difference. Akaroa, I was astonished how little difference it made to the travel times on the open road, dropping it from 100 to 80. It made a minute 30 difference getting to Akaroa. And I think
100
that,
k's, yeah.
and you know, we just need to relax and think it might take another minute and a half to get across town or something, but actually you don't need to be thinking about, there's so much less you need to be thinking about. Kids are safer, there's fewer injuries. I think just
Makes
do it.
sense. Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Dave.
Cheers.
And if any consolation, you're not the only one saying that. But thanks for coming in. It's really helpful. So, Richard, is Richard here? So, does anyone know who that gentleman is? Are you here to submit?
Yes, I'm Patrick.
Patrick?
From where?
Yep, okay. Would you like to come forward, Patrick? Thank you. I was looking at Hazel. Welcome. Morning.
Oh, this is Hazel.
Right. Thanks, Patrick. You have 5 minutes, so you can start now. Thanks for
you.
coming in.
Hi everybody, I'm Patrick. I'm a civil engineer, been working in Christchurch for about 11 years. I ride my bike to work, and yeah, I'm an advocate for road safety, and I'm a big supporter of the speed reductions that have been proposed. But I want to talk about a legacy issue that's been here since the earthquakes, and that's to do with the roads around the red zone areas. How do I move this to the next? Oh. So red zone roads are really wide. We know this. A lot of Christchurch roads are wide. When they've not got any houses on them, they're even wider. And they are comfortable to drive fast on. Hopefully we all agree with that. Here's an example. So this is Retreat Road in Avonside. There's a box in the corner covering up the text. Is that able to be shifted?
No, that's our Zoom camera, sorry.
Okay.
What does it say, Patrick? Can you remember?
So this is marked for speed reduction to 30 kilometres an hour. But the road is as wide as State Highway 1. Right. There are no houses there anymore. It's effectively a runway. Zooming back to 2007, you can see a lot of parked cars, you know, a lot more hazards. People drive slower in this sort of environment. So I live on a little road called Swans Road, which actually sits in Richmond. And as you can see, the Retreat Road comes off the end of that after the bridge. So again, marked for speed reduction, and it's on the edge of the red zone. So all of the green on that map are essentially red zone or park areas. And a lot of those roads are actually now closed. You know, they're walking paths or they're just left to sort of rot away. But some of those roads are still open. And Retreat Road is the one I'm talking about in particular here. So this is Swans Road again. I live up by the little red car in the distance there. The road is 13 metres wide, and I don't know if you know, people really understand that that's actually the twice the standard width. That's even wider than State Highway 1 for most of the length of the country. We have a lot of speed in cars, and I've been trying to figure this out. As you can see in the photo, a lot of cyclists, they come from the Kerrs Reach rowing group just down the road. So I think one day I counted over 80 cyclists in the afternoon coming down this road. And that's really interesting because their route through to Fendleton, because that's where most of them come from, Maryvale, is the same route that I ride my bike on to work, and they don't follow any cycleways that have been built. So that's just an interesting point. So I was trying to figure out why cars zoom down Swans Road and then Retreat Road at nearly 100 kilometres an hour, and it's because it's an attractive alternative to driving on the roads that were built for them. So east-west and west-east travel, cars coming south down Stanmore Road, hook down Swans, and they can get to Dallington a lot faster because there aren't any traffic lights, there aren't any stop signs, there aren't any parked cars or, you know, what we'd call sort of known risks on roads. So it's an attractive alternative, and this is a big change since the earthquakes. Another point to make is that the Otakaro River Trail comes down the river, crosses Retreat Road, crosses Swans Road at the bridge. This is a really key project for the community, but we've got this racetrack running right down the middle of it. And this is a 13-metre road that the council is maintaining, spending a lot of money on, and I don't really understand it. So just to wrap up, you know, a lot of decisions were made very quickly after the earthquakes. We know that all sorts of things were done in the water space. That's my field. A lot of road closures, not a lot of thought into how this is going to affect communities long term. These roads are now very different. So some ideas that the community has come up with here is that we actually close Retreat Road, where I've indicated the red mark, and we look at maybe a one-way option across Swans Road so that it's no longer an effective detour or bypass. And really considering the residents, you know, we have people going 100 kilometres an hour down our road in the middle of the night, and it's quite awful. It's unsafe for cyclists.
No,
and
that's amazing.
yeah,
Thank you very much. So your time is
thank you.
up. But look, I really appreciate that. It was a very, really, really good, clear submission and noted. Thank you. Okay, is Richard here yet? No. Do we have Nigel? So, are you here to submit? Yes. I think she's a spectator. That's Robbie Dobby. Would you like to come forward? Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Philip Westcombe.
Philip. Oh, yep. Here we go.
Very good.
So welcome, Philip. Philip's on page 38 of the agenda. So you have 5 minutes and you can start now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. I wanted to use a specific line from the Gladiator movie, which is, "I'm sorely vexed by this proposal." So I would like to oppose it today. And I guess one of the reasons for that is I'm not quite sure what we're trying to achieve with this proposal. I think the pedestrian safety seems to be the key from what I can see, and hopefully I've understood that well. But when I look at the annual numbers of pedestrian deaths in Canterbury, each year we get between 1 or 2 as a general rule. So we're not going to make a huge amount of difference with any sort of changes that we put forward. I think you can see on the graph here, which is taken from the Ministry of Transport website, that the average over the last 7 years is 2.14 each year. I think Wellington and Canterbury, if you spend that out to hospitalisations and pedestrian associated crashes, again, we're only 7% of hospitalisations across the country, so very, very small. So just, it's the first point, I think we really don't have a problem. Sorry, regress this. Oh, there, cool. So I do agree, I think I'm happy enough for specific speed restrictions around school entrances in a very limited way, perhaps 30 to 60 minutes either side of school starting and finishing. I think that would be fine, as long as it's restricted to sort of a 500 metre zone or something like that, or even less around those schools. But the reasons against expanding that any further is that I think it increases emergency response times. You will have seen that in the submissions from the emergency services themselves. We're already more than 100% slower since the earthquakes. And I wonder, if we start to slow things down further, how many deaths will result from that? If we consider we've only got 1 or 2 deaths a year as it is, any more from that will mean we're losing ground rather than gaining. The balance of costs and benefits to us as ratepayers doesn't seem to have been done. I couldn't see anything of that in the consultation documents that came out to us anyway. So is there evidence to support the claim that slower speeds will actually, in areas where we're not full of pedestrians, going to make any difference? Has there been a cost to implement study done? What are the opportunity cost losses? I've done a small calculation for you on the next slide. And frustration for drivers like me as we head down the roads at 30 kilometres an hour, blood pressure will be rising. Why are we going so slow? It just doesn't seem right in many places, especially when there's no one on the road, like in many of these locations. I think many of the issues we have are around speeders zooming down roads, which is causing frustration and annoyance. And this doesn't relate to a 50 kilometre hour speed zone. This is a lack of policing, really. So I think if we police vigorously in areas where people are complaining that there's loud noise, people coming by at 100 kilometres an hour, whatever, well then that might make a difference. I think we need to be considerate that if we do slow down areas, traffic will move to different locations. That could increase the risk of accidents occurring in those areas, and we may end up with more accidents than we're saving. That should be considered. And I think we don't want Christchurch to be like Auckland. I don't want to see you guys hated as much as Auckland Transport is. So please make the right decision. Yeah. Finally, the business case example is a very simple one, but just assuming that if we drive around Christchurch and we lose 1 minute per week due to speed changes or less than 10 seconds a day, what does that equate to in lost working time? 166 40-hour working weeks, if we assume there's 400,000 residents in Christchurch. Obviously, that can add up to $7.9 million per year in lost potential. And I think also we need to consider, other economic losses which can result in other health impacts and life years lost. We know as an economy declines, health is decreased. So if we add all these things together, I personally think the business case won't stack up if we look back at those original figures of 1 to 2 people per year is what the margin we're working on. You're not going to see that statistically. Thank you.
Right, so thank you. 40 seconds. Aaron?
Yeah, just because I've asked this question many times, can't get the answer. Of your 2.4 deaths per year, how many of those are caused by people doing the actual speed limit and concentrating on driving versus excessive speeding, drugs, drink?
Exactly. I haven't seen any data like that, and I would have thought that would have been a key piece of information you should have been presented.
So. Asked 4 times. Doesn't exist yet, but hoping to see it.
Andre, just quickly.
Thank you. I've never been a huge fan of lowering speed limits. However, I had a conversation last week with a father and his daughter was hit by a car going to school last year. And it's a road where the average speed is 66 k's. If there was a variable 30 k's speed limit around school times, that probably likely would have been the difference in this case. Yep. What do you say to a father like that? Because that's these are the things we have to weigh up.
I think what I'm saying is, outside of school, I'm fine with 30 k's an hour.
Well, it's not outside of school though.
Where was it, sorry?
But it's on the journey to school. They can't get to school without going past this busy road, you know what I mean?
Well, I think what ought to be done is a study to say, where are these events happening? Is that a hotspot for that sort of thing happening? I think you can, if you do the work, you can find, okay, where are the hotspots? Where have we got it wrong in Christchurch?
Yeah.
And it's obviously not very many because we don't have very many of these incidents each year. So if you can do that, target what you're doing more accurately, don't just have a blanket.
Yes, you'd be comfortable with those speed limits in those more targeted areas.
If they're targeted and there's a good reason to say, look, we have 10 accidents a year right here, well then sure, I've got no problem. Obviously there's an issue there.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, our time is up.
Yes, thank you very much.
So we skipped forward there to Philip. Is Richard Leacock here yet? No. Nigel Ellis? Nigel Ellis? No. Kate Heap? You are? Come forward. Welcome. How are you, Kate? Thanks for coming in.
A little nervous, but
No, don't be. We don't bite.
I suppose if you're passionate enough about something. As a St Albans resident, active walker and mother of 2 young children, I support the review of school speeds in school neighbourhoods, particularly of Springfield Road. Additionally, I would propose a controlled or raised crossing needs to be installed somewhere in the middle of Springfield Road to genuinely meet your proposal aims of travel being safer around schools. As your proposal stated, whether you're visiting whānau and friends, letting tamariki walk, scooter or bike to school, you should be able to do it safely. As a proud parent of a student counsellor, I was privy to a project by the St Albans School Council where the tamariki wanted to encourage more travel to school on foot or wheels. The children did a community survey and received 200 responses. I've included the actual data in my paperwork, but 16 people in that one small survey indicated Springfield Road was a problem or deterrent for those whānau to safely walk or wheel to school. I'm here to ask you to consider the families in many school zones that may require the use of crossing of Springfield Road on foot, scooter or bike, those being the schools on the presentation. Do I have to click this? Mine? Sorry.
Keep going.
Oh, okay. Mine's changed, yours hasn't. I refer to St Albans Primary, St Albans Catholic, Heaton Intermediate, both girls and boys high school, and various private schools in the Mirabelle area. Hundreds of children on a daily basis must make decisions on where to cross, when to cross, and then frankly play chicken and just dash across this curvy road with limited visibility and hope to avoid cars in this 2 kilometre long zone.
It's going good, but if you push the down arrow.
Sorry. I could not stand by and miss an opportunity to bring this to the attention of people who could minimise that danger. It is not just school routes. We must also bear in mind this road provides access to parks for play, to walk a dog, access to shops, pharmacies and doctors, the marae, nearby supermarkets, or a number of local churches. For local cyclists to connect up to the new safe cycleways, they have to cross Springfield Road. This is an area defined as residential medium density or suburban density transition zones. Basically, this just means a lot of people live on either side of this road, and this will only increase over time. Anecdotally, Springfield Road and connecting Durham Street North would be described as a busy road. In 2021, an average of 7,170 cars travelled in both directions at an average of 45 during peak times. I would love to see the average speed data at 2 a.m, but idiots racing cars is probably another submission altogether. Currently, in the nearly 2 kilometre running from Beeley Ave to St Albans Street, there is no safe or controlled place to cross. There is no traffic lights. It is common to hear of a near miss or ding, particularly at the Aberley-Edgware Road intersection. A friend managed to source some crash data that indicated in the previous 10 years, over 50% of the serious and minor crashes along Springfield Road have involved a cyclist or a pedestrian. The St Albans Street end of Springfield Road is a very congested and confusing give way. It is literally known as an uncontrolled T intersection. I personally have seen many a near miss for children trying to cross. There is an island to wait in the middle of the road, but it's not wide enough for a parent with a buggy or two kids on scooters. And with queued traffic and peak times, drivers cannot see each other. It is not safe for anyone to cross here, let alone children trying to independently get to school. The Springfield Road corridor is relatively busy, and therefore a reduction of speeds, as we've just heard, could indeed increase driver frustration and possibly add to congestion. I'm told by a senior traffic engineer that Springfield Road does not have any side friction, no build-outs like planting that can help slow traffic without actually changing a speed limit or naturally encourage slower driver speeds. You could, after this review, change Springfield Road to 40k, but I believe without additional measures, average speeds probably won't dramatically change, and it will not allow any more of a safer crossing. You've already heard in your hearings last week that there are issues with speed enforcement in the newly 30 and 40k zones. So I accept speed reduction actually might not be the right solution. So I reiterate, if speeds cannot be addressed, then traffic calming or control measures would indeed need to be introduced because crossing is fundamentally unsafe. You've declared a climate emergency. Having safe carbon-free ways of getting around is part of this. I've spoken about school-age tamariki, but also consider vulnerable community members, elderly, disabled, vision impaired, parents walking with prams, preschoolers. These groups are all serially impacted if no safe ways to walk or cycle exist. I had families in this survey looking to implement carbon-free initiatives like a walking school bus, which was a really well-supported outcome, unlike a lot of schools. But those parents also said, I can't take responsibility for other children and cross Springfield Road. I'm mindful of time, so by way of conclusion, I'd like to add into today's hearing and onto your public record some documentation in support of a review and consideration of implementing a controlled crossing on Springfield Road. Comments from the relevant community board meetings. I understand this is possibly already in progress. Screenshots of supporting Facebook comments from the Safe Speeds, data from the recent St Albans School Traffic Plan, email comments from Heaton Intermediate, and an email from St Albans School Board and Principal. Unfortunately, this was a little bit of a last-minute crusade for me, so I didn't have time to engage with all the schools, but I have no doubt they would echo the comments of Principal James Grigg of Heaton Intermediate and Andrea Harden of St Albans School. We firmly believe that a crossing at Springfield Road would provide an effective solution to address these concerns. It would serve as a visual and physical reminder to motorists to exercise caution and prioritise the safety of pedestrians, particularly our students. It would instill confidence in parents and guardians knowing that their children have a safe means of crossing the road and arriving at school without unnecessary risk.
Well done. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you for all the work you've put into that. Look, the Waipapa Community Board has got a crossing at Springfield Road in their community board plan, but apart from that, there's no actual work started on that. So your comments are very welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So do we have Nigel? No. No, Richard. Paul Lawton? No. Ross McFarlane? We do. Welcome, Ross.
Good morning, all.
Thanks for coming in. You've got 5 minutes and you can
Thank you for the
fire away.
opportunity. Ross McFarlane, resident of Hallsville, 30 odd years. Pretty involved in the community in various ways, involved in many of the planning processes, right back to what was the Crete study, Christchurch Environment Transport Study, District Plan, Southwest Area Plan. I live in the area, I work in the area, and I farmed very badly in the area. I also, when I was on the community board for Hallsville, I set the lower speed limits of 40k an hour through the Longhurst Knightstream subdivisions. I reckon I had the record because I received the first ticket for going 42 kilometres an hour in that area. I proudly work now as the school caretaker at the local school, about 80 hours a week, of which very little are paid. We have 35 nationalities go to that school. We started in 2019 with 85 pupils. We have 430 now. Just finished another classroom block for another 300. It'll take us to 700 in the year 25-26. We're heavily into cycling at school. We have a jump track and a pump track, and just yesterday and today actually at school we have your school cycle safe program. So thanks for that support, and please keep that funded. 35 nationalities, some kids just don't own a bike. and it's their first opportunity with encouragement from others rather than mum and dad whipping them along to get on a bike. So it's really positive, so thanks for that. If you're ever in the area, take a bike ride out there, have a look around. Right, my submission, which we're going to fly through now. Interactive consultation process was great. Congratulations to the staff. It was very well done. I have a few buts. I personally have concern though where a person likes or dislikes a comment on that interactive submission, as it may influence somebody else from making a full submission. Or a person may think that likes or dislikes contribute or oppose a submission. I don't think that's really positive. Also, early submissions. This one run over, I think, about 2.5 months. Early submissions get obviously the most likes or dislikes, and if you're like me, you put your submission on the last day, you get very little likes or dislikes. So just on that. Focus today, as per submission, is the engineering component of the 3 E's of the Road to Zero approach, which has brought about the opportunity to reduce speed limits throughout the city. The focus of today, reading the same line again, engineering. You have control over this. Either it is what we're discussing here today, or in a more indirect way, using your planning and transport teams. There's 2 mistakes I hope that are published in Appendix F of your agenda today, which do not appear logical, and I'll get through these now. Oops, wrong button.
The down arrow.
Enter. Where are we?
The down arrow.
Down.
Yep.
Yes, that's the board area. Green area, the green dot, sorry, is the major Springs Road, Marshes Road roundabout. It is effectively the off-ramp into Hallsville and Rigram for motorway traffic. The next off-ramp is the Kirtletts Road off-ramp before the motorway becomes an expressway at Brougham Street. That new roundabout is very, very effective at getting traffic from the motorway onto that yellow line, which is Wincops Road. My submission says that that road needs to change from its present 40 status to 30 km/h as a real barrier to Selwyn traffic rat running. The community board recently, I'm not sure if it has come to council as a Part A yet, but proposed for a number of speed cushions, ramps at the roundabout, all trying to slow that traffic down. The roundabout has unfortunately had 1 death last year where a bus hit a cyclist, and also we've had a teacher from school knocked off her bike at that same intersection. Speed bumps, I touched on those. Just on those, rather than invest in speed bumps and speed cushions, would a simple reduction in 30 km/h solve that? Moving on quickly. Yeah, that whole Hallsville area, there's a lot of roads that's shown on there with new subdivisions, but would it take a great deal to change it all to yellow? There's one particular mistake I think should be changed to 30. That's Nichols Road, a mere 500 metres long. Every side road of that is 30k. Why not make the yellow strip there 30k? Won't be any more signs because the ones that you're not using where the yellow dots are will go where the red dots are. Engineering from a planning perspective. We try to get the kids to bike to school. This is the main road, Skibbereen Drive, that leads to Richmond Ave and Caulfield Ave. One new subdivision, not opened yet, fully marked with the cycle lane. The bigger major subdivision, it's called Matai Springs by the Fletcher Company. No on-road cycleway marked, and that happens in many places in Hallsville. Another piece of engineering, the developers made to put a stop in, a removable stop from a pathway to get the mower in to mow the park. The kids, that is their only way to school, but no bridge to get across the creek. Okay, so what do the parents do? They put them in the car and take them. So that's my submission. The lower you go, the less the mess. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming in, Ross. That's really, really interesting. Okay, do we have Paul here? Richard Leacock, no. Nigel Ellis, Dave Gardner. Paul? Oh, Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
Good timing, Paul, welcome.
Good morning. You toto.
So just fire away when you're ready, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. You've just caught me a wee bit early, but that's fine. I'm happy
Yeah,
to talk.
we are going a wee bit ahead, so
Good, interesting panel. That's great. Well, Paul Loughton, and basically, reason I'm here today is that I'm endorsing the speed limit on Kennedy Bush Road for 40k. I've lived in the area since 1980, and I know the road well. In fact, when I came there in 1980, there were no footpaths, just an open ditch on the side of the road, and outside my gate was an open road speed sign. And it was very pleasant in terms of traffic. You could walk up and down the road quite freely. And there were about 60 to 80 houses on the hill in total. Now, if we fast forward to 2023, and there's about 220 houses on the hill at the moment, and there's approximately another 100 to go. So quite a change in our neighbourhood over that point in time. Now, the problem with Kennedy's Bush Road is, if you can see on, I don't know if we're able to show the street view of this, of Kennedy's Bush Road. Has somebody got control of that? Well, I need to do it. No? Okay. I was hoping you might have the street view up on the screen. I could talk to that. But that's all right. If you, I guess most of you folk here being Christchurch people will be familiar with Kennedy's Bush Road. Yes? Okay. The Hallsville Quarry, of course, was still operating in 1980. Today, it's a very popular holiday reserve. Reserve. And in fact, as I went down the hill this morning, there probably would have been 20 or 30 cars down there at 9 o'clock this morning, 8:30 this morning. Now, the problem we have is that the downhill straight, which is below my place, good, we've got it here, we're good, that's great, thank you, whoever's doing that. If we can now move slowly up the hill, that would be appreciated, thank you. Right, that's great. If we look at that on the right-hand side, all those driveways that exit there have to come uphill. So they're pointing your nose out onto the road, and there is very limited visibility. And the problem is, being a downhill road, of course, the speed picks up. And the recent traffic count done earlier in May showed a total of 1,400 vehicle movements a day during the week. 10% of them were heavy trucks. Interesting, it's got all the developments that are going on. And the average speed was the interesting factor. And I just look at my notes here, and I see that 38% of the downhill traffic was exceeding 50 k's. And the average speed downhill was 52. So you can get an idea that there's quite a few cars that are doing 60 plus down the hill. And coming out of those driveways on the right is it's not easy, but local people know about it, but you get courier drivers and visitors, etc., and there is a major problem. There have been no accidents that I'm aware of, but it doesn't say there won't be in the future. On the left-hand side, if you move slowly up the hill there, you will see that there is no parking available, because as you get up where the trees are, about up there to the left anyway, there's, I think I'm about right there, it's hard to see you back to front perhaps. Anyway, you can only really park on one side of the road because there's no way, you can't exit your vehicle on the other side, on the passenger side. And of course, when you've got parking on either side of the road, what do you have to do? You've got to go to the centre, which only compounds the problem, because when you get up the top here, further up the road, we come to an elbow bend, just up the top there, past that car, please. Yeah, further on, still. Here we go. Still on, further on. We can see these driveways coming out onto the road here. So we move on further up, please. Yeah, here. Yeah, okay. We've somehow quite skipped it, I think. But no, keep going. That's all right. There we are. Good, there we are.
Slow down, slow down.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so it's very hard for me to follow too. But okay, we've now got an elbow bend here, and a very sharp one. And 243 virtually has a blind exit. See where these white marker posts are here going around the corner? Their driveway is right on the corner, but on the other side there are other exits as well. It's quite a nasty corner. And of course, if you've got cars parked just before it, you swing out and you're over the centre line. So it's not very good. And as we go further up the hill again, yes, that's good. We come to another rise on the hill, and visibility you see there? Okay. So then cars come to below this hill here on the left-hand side, visibility is very poor, because cars come sweeping over the hill at some 60 plus, and you don't have much time to get moving.
So you've got 5 seconds left.
5 seconds left,
Yes.
That's all right, we'll quickly talk. So that's the area, of course, as you're coming down the hill, is a bit like a river. It starts off as a stream at the top, and by the time you get down the bottom, there's the 1,700 to 1,400 cars a day, 700 each way on the road. Up the top is not such an issue as you go further up to the new subdivision, because that's the area which is the beginning of the road.
Yeah, so you're supporting a slower speed zone there. It's much safer.
So, okay, so I hope I made the point clear. What we're trying to achieve is just to endorse what you folks are saying and keep that speed down, much as I regret to say it was open road when I first went up there.
Thanks, Paul.
But that's the point.
Very good, very clear.
Okay. Any
Just
questions?
A note. Yeah. Well, we're out of time for questions, but thank you very much for your submission. And I'd just note as well, we had a very good presentation to our community board a couple of months ago, which was around visibility around Kennedy's Bush Road.
Correct.
Which is something that we're currently awaiting advice on what our options may be around visibility. But if we're able to also note that.
Well, we just have a quick look at that screen now. You see all these trees and shrubs you've got growing on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So that's helpful, Paul, and you know the community board's onto it, and we've taken note of everything you've said in your submission. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Okay.
Nigel Ellis? No. Dave Gardner? Dave? Good morning, Dave. Thanks for coming in.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You've got 5 minutes and you can fire away when you're ready.
Yep. Well, thank you to staff for taking account all the feedback and all the work that they do. Thank you to the Waipapa Papanui Inner's Central Community Board for advocating for better, safer neighbourhoods. And thank you, councillors, for making Christchurch a better place to live.
Oh, what a lovely start. Thank you.
Well, I'm supportive of the proposed changes. I'm in the Winters Road, Grimsey's Road area, and that has recently been included with the proposal, and I'm also supportive of the proposed changes across Christchurch. Here's a little bit of details on the stopping distance. I'm sure you guys have seen it before. The blue is the reaction time and the orange is the braking distance. And you can see the reaction time at 50 k's is longer than the reaction and stopping distance of 30 k's. The benefits, it's safer for the vulnerable people in our society. Also, more people will be able to have the option to be active, walking, bicycling, scootering. There will be less toxic tyre particles and brake dust polluting our land and waterways, which I know the council really does not like. And there will also be lower noise pollution from engines and tyres on the road. More benefits, again, is a more relaxing drive and less road rage. I find myself, when I drive 30 in the city, it's a lot more relaxing than going 50. There's more time for cars to pull out because the stopping distance is shorter for other cars and you don't need as much reaction time. Less rear-end collisions. Roads freed up for emergency vehicles, allowing them to get to their destination quicker and safer. And there will also be less injuries for people, so less ambulances on the road because less crashes. And cost savings for the people of Christchurch. Less cost for the council to replace, repair infrastructure damaged by car crashes. On the Lincoln Road, Morehouse Ave corner, recently, maybe in the past 2 months, there's been 2 signalised lights damaged. That costs people to repair and puts rates up. Less upkeep required on the road, as the road will wear down less. Less lost productivity of our people due to death and injury. Now, this morning when I woke up, I just got a message from my workmate. He was T-boned last night, so he's off work for 2 weeks now. So he was most likely on a bicycle, as he does not own a car. So yeah, he dislocated his shoulder. So yeah, not very nice. I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet about that. Cranford Street Main North Road intersection. I've noticed that there's a little area which will, in between variable 30k areas. That's the Cranford Street Main North Road intersection area. And the green you can see is the 30k variable. And I think it's a bit weird to have it going from 30k to 50k to 30k there, as I've seen other people mention in different areas around Christchurch as well. Especially there's a pack and save going in there with new signalised lights there. So there's 4 schools in the area: St Bede's College, Papanui Primary School, St Joseph's School and St Margaret's College there. And the children all need to go through that area to get to their school. The approximate distances, St Joseph's to the lights is 95 metres, Papanui Primary to the lights is 150 metres, St Margaret's, St Bede's to the lights is 180 metres. So, yeah. And it's not just New Zealand. I don't know if anyone's done any research on this, but Seoul and Korea, they've lowered their school zones to 30 k's an hour. They have. Paris, France has extended its 30k speed limit to most city streets. So they already had 30 k's and they expanded it recently. Wales is dropping it to 30 k's as well. And there's research that shows that Wales can save £100 million in the first year by dropping the speed limit. So that would be with crashes and road maintenance and everything. So in time. And Brussels and Belgium, they also have a 30k limit. And it has led to a long-term reduction in speed. So initially people won't do it, but as time passes, it'll start to happen. And I strongly support it and do more, as everyone else has said, like including the minor arterials and also arterial roads. Thank you.
Good submission. Thank you so much. So that's your 5 minutes used up. But thank you so much for coming in, Dave. Well done. Do we have Andrew Massey, sorry. Welcome.
Hi.
We are running a little bit early, so thanks for coming in and being prepared early.
Okay, no worries. Thanks everyone for hearing me.
You're welcome. You've got a video. Yep.
I've got an entertaining PowerPoint.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You like that?
Yes, I am. I know Toron too. Yeah. We go back a very long way. All right, we off? Oh. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I took this yesterday morning. This is Cypress Street. We're in Linwood. We're opposite the graveyard on just near Ruru Road. Okay. It's known as the drag strip. All right. Now we're not included in the Safer Speeds program, but we really should be. I'm going to show you why. Now there's no sound with this, but we get this kind of stuff all the time. When you hit, basically, that's looking down from the south end, heading north. So it's a nice straight piece of road, and then the other way, looking south. So it's 274 metres long, which is nearly a quarter mile. Yeah. So now, if you want to go from the industrial area at Maces Road to Pages Road, you could go this way, which is Ruru Road, which has a nice windy road and intersections, and it's a bit boring. But for the same amount of time, you could go down our street, here it is here, and you've got the drag strip, and you can gun it down there, and it's awesome. Right? Which is all fine and good. We've got our frequent flyers. Here's one here. Woof. Black hatchback. Oops, same video. Here he is at night, same guy. What's his number plate? Death Wish. We've reported him to the police so many times, and we just keep seeing him all the time. All right. We get our overtakers. Sorry, this is a night, so it's a bit dark, but you can see here's a car coming up, and woof, 275 metres of street. You know, it's just nuts. And here's another one. So this video here, I'm pretty sure this is like one of those drifter racer cars. And this was his third lap around the block. And we had a guy down the road called Jim. It's all right, he's still alive. But he had enough. And he basically went out to try and stop this guy.
Ooh.
And you can see
jeez.
The car actually hit his foot. And you'd think with like neighbours with cell phones out and everything taking video, here's a slow down version. Jim's got 2 wee kiddies, you know. He actually moved away in the end. But, you know, I think that this is a good video to illustrate how bad it can be. Yeah, we got his plate and we got him to the police, and he did disappear, or the car disappeared. And that was him going past my place. Here's another one. Is that another one? Oh, here it comes. So look, I mean, it's hard to gauge, but that is closing in on 100 k's. All right, I haven't got a speedo. I looked at buying a speedometer because it's quite amazing. And then we get our burnout guys. There they go. Here we go. Just another one. And this fella here, so one of my neighbours got this video, and she took that, and this guy here, he pulled over and stopped and had a go at it, and it's a shame she didn't keep recording, but she basically ran inside and rang the police because he was a mob member and didn't appreciate that she was videoing him. So, you know, it's actually got quite a safety aspect to it too for us. So look, we've all rung up the roading unit and they've said, no, there's been no deaths or injuries on your road, so there's no point in putting speed bumps in. And we don't feel very well listened to. and to be honest, if you look at our street, it's ideal just for something. And if I go down Smith Street that has like 8 speed bumps on it, it's like, okay, and then go through Maryvale and other places. It's like, just put one in. It's just to stop him or slow him down halfway, you know. That would be fine. But they're like, oh, it's thousands of dollars and it's, you know, not justified. Sorry, I'm running out of time. And we know the police are understaffed. All right, I'll pick up the pace. Oh, good. Excellent. Oh, hang on, I've been turned off.
Tim.
Sorry, just quickly. How about a sign like this? Warning, this street's being considered for speed humps. Slow down or they're going to be installed. Just as a warning to them. I know we're running out of time. Sorry, the PowerPoint stopped.
Try that down arrow.
Down arrow? Down?
Can I keep going?
Try the down arrow.
Are you using the down arrow?
It's just it won't go and play. Sorry. Anyway, there we could put the picture on our street. And what I was going there with that is it pretty much combined with the smell from the waste plant and everything. You know,
just adds to it all.
It's becoming really an issue, and would really like to be included in the plan. There we go.
Well, look, thank you. That was a really, really good submission. Really interesting.
Cool.
We
Thanks for hearing me,
don't
guys.
really have
I
any
appreciate
time,
it.
Aaron. I'll allow one.
An actual action, given the videos we've just seen for the installation of those speed humps, like happy to do it at the next council meeting as a notice of motion. But if we have to do that, that's ridiculous.
Well, we will have some recommendations at the end of this.
Okay,
today
on that list, can you put speed humps on that street? Like, I don't normally support speed humps, but that there, absolutely happy with. So the evidence is overwhelming.
Hey, and that might be 5%. of what actually goes on. We're not always ready with our phones.
You've taken that as an
But
action.
we can put that in, Aaron, as
Thank
a
you.
noting, and we do have a briefing next week.
So can I just say, there's already money on budget for Bromley roading improvements that I've fought for 5 years to get on budget. The staff are being asked to work through a traffic plan for Bromley, and this is absolutely going to be part of it. What we need, though, is for that plan, we need the staff resource to get that delivered on top of the government's funding for the SURF, which is about another 3 million going in to improve the intersections in Bromley. But there's no governance oversight of that, and there's no structure to the community group.
Well, Yanni,
The board has raised that
we can take that
repeatedly.
offline and we can talk
So
about that.
it's
in
not
the
a money
budget.
issue. It's actually just we need the resources to get this money spent.
Yes, Yanni,
And
we
can
know
bring this
that.
up
We
at the
know
meeting next-
resourcing is a challenge, but we do need to listen to residents who have taken the time to come in and compile such an interesting video, evidence-based, and so I thank you again for coming in. It's
Especially
awesome.
legends like this guy, eh? Honestly.
Cool. Hey, thanks for listening, team. We appreciate it.
So we don't know.
No.
So Richard's not here. Nigel not here. Okay, so I'm going to cross them off because they've not come in. So we do not have a submitter till 10:20 now. So we can all take a bit of a break. But can you be back at 10:18? welcome Hamish. Come to the table. Thanks for coming in. Page 38 as well. Fire away. You've got 5 minutes. Yes.
Press the button. Don't touch the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so
Okay.
when it's green, it's on,
Okay.
and it just stays on, and that means the people who are attending.
Right.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
okay.
Tim. The people who are on Zoom can hear you then.
Cool.
As
So
well.
if it goes red, I know you've cut me off.
Yeah, that's right. Keep an eye on it. Fire away.
Okay. Good morning, Mayor and councillors. My name is.
Sorry,
Hamish.
I'm the deputy mayor.
Oh, sorry. Good morning,
Thank
deputy.
you.
Good morning, deputy mayor. Apologies. It's an aspirational title. My name is Hamish Scott, and I live in Merivale. I would like to begin by saying a huge thank you to all council team members involved in promoting, designing and implementing the Slow Speed Neighbourhoods initiative. I believe there are many positive benefits stemming from this. Do I need to read out my original submission that I added to that map? Would that help?
You can do what you like with your 5 minutes.
Okay.
We've got your submission here.
In front of you? Okay, well,
Yes.
I'll just expand on that then.
Yeah, that might be best.
Okay. I feel strongly that no urban planning should be done in isolation. That is, the connectivity and flow of infrastructure within and between communities must be designed as part of a broader and holistic approach and must serve the community, not dominate it. To this point, Merivale now faces a few new challenges as a neighbourhood. These include proposed new medium and high density changes, probable redevelopment of the Merivale Mall and surrounding businesses, possible light rail corridor on Papanui Road. Given the likelihood of greater density and therefore greater numbers of people in a small area, slowing the traffic down is a great way to put the community first. With many of the roads in Merivale being narrow and with increasing levels of on-street parking, the need to slow traffic down is growing. As mentioned in my original submission comment, many people do not respect speed limits in general, let alone 30 or 40 kilometres an hour. I still see people ignoring the 30 kilometre hour limit in the central city, and my observations in St Albans and more recently at Pawa are similar, especially where there is a mix of 50, 40 and 30 restriction zones within a short distance. This is why I agree that a blanket 30 kilometres an hour throughout Merivale would be a simpler solution. I do think the more we apply lower limits to neighbourhoods, the more people will get used to them. The main challenge, not just for Merivale, is often non-local cut-through traffic, particularly during peak movements. In my area, Leinster Road, Aikmans Road, Office Road, where I hail from, Rugby Street and Merivale Lane are all treated in this manner to some extent. Rugby Street and Winchester Street see disrespectful speeds in the wider sections. The narrower section of Rugby Street towards Papanui Road supports the case for traffic calming measures as speeds are slower there. Where narrow roads intersect, 50 kilometres is often not appropriate, especially when people also ignore stop signs. The corner where Winchester Road sweeps into Office Road is a classic example of this. I have seen many near misses due to people refusing to slow down when approaching this corner from both directions and then running straight into constricted traffic in the Office Road section heading to the mall. I have seen many broken side mirrors on parked cars in that section due to people refusing to give way or slow down. Some further restrictions to on-street parking would be helpful, but might be somewhat unfair to local residents. So when introducing lower speeds, this must, in my opinion, be accompanied by physical traffic calming facets, such as narrowed entrances to roads, speed bumps, raised intersections and pedestrian crossings, and pedestrian and cycling priority pathways. As mentioned, all of this must be done with a broader consideration to the way the area is likely to be developed. For example, how do you allow for higher density and a larger mall facility while reducing speeds and restricting traffic flows? If the mall is going to be redeveloped, then we should be planning for traffic management now, not waiting till it creates a congestion problem. Papanui Road may well be a major corridor, but it is already a busy and sometimes congested one. Another consideration with slower speeds is that because many of the narrow roads in Merivale result in some narrow and inclined footpaths, This makes it difficult for someone in a wheelchair or scooter to move about easily, especially on bin day. Add to this the many cars driving at discourteous speeds very close by. I suspect that might be quite intimidating. Slowing traffic down and prioritising pedestrian movements will be a great way to make sure all residents feel safe to move about within their community. Thank you very much.
Very good, very clear. No questions today for Hamish? No? All right.
No questions?
Thank you very much. And you're not the first person to make those comments as well.
Sure.
Your comments about the holistic thing was quite unique, but a lot of people have talked about the engineering of streets to encourage slowing down. And of course, that does come with a lot of money, but we do have an
Yes.
LCP coming up. You never know.
Very mindful of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a
And
great
thanks
day.
everyone for coming back on time. So we now have a break until 10:50. So please be back at 10:45. Yeah. Oh, Lynette. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, we'll kick away again and welcome Tim Preston, please.
I'll see you this other.
Yep. Hi, Tim.
Good morning. Look, thank you for your time today. Some of you do know me. I've been born in Christchurch. I've lived here probably 30 years. I've got 3 kids in intermediate and primary school. We live over in Ireland. I'm predominantly a cyclist. I bike probably about 9.5 days out of the fortnight to work, and I tend to bike by preference just about everywhere, unless I've got something big in tow like kids. I can't remember how I heard about the Safe Speeds proposal, but I thought it was fairly extraordinary and enough to get a bit interested in, and the more I read about it, the more extraordinary it seemed. And my general take on it is that I'm still gasping for someone to stand up and explain why we need to change at all. I'm not denying that there's probably a need for some change, but I haven't actually seen a case for change in terms of what the problem is, how bad the problem is, why that would motivate us actually even to be here today. I haven't seen that yet in the information. I have put a bit of effort into this. I haven't necessarily died in a ditch looking for everything, but I have asked a few questions. My general opinion is that there probably is a case for some change, but I'd be interested to know more about really how much danger we have on our 50k roads, because we don't hear much in the media about the accidents that occur in that sort of space. And how much speed is a factor in those accidents either, I don't know. My mother-in-law got run over 2 days ago, but the speed in that case was about 5 kilometres an hour of a car pulling out of a footpath, and the speed limit on the road would have had nothing to do with it. So I'm sympathetic to some degree for direction, but I'm feeling overall quite unimpressed with the motivation for the degree of the change that's proposed. Certainly in my neighbourhood, even around the schools that my children go to, congestion takes quite good care of any speed limits. You'd be lucky to get up to 15 k's an hour outside the school when the green lights come on to play. So, you know, nice to have 30. Sign would be great. It's not really going to change, I think, anything in the neighbourhood that I live in, that. I'm concerned with the breadth of the proposed changes, that the increase in road tension, like there's already a degree of tension between the people that drive sort of 49.5 kilometres an hour and the ones who prefer to drive 59. That's quite manageable. I think with this change I see that tension sort of exploding quite significantly, and it does make me concerned whether our roads will become more aggressive and dangerous because of the change in that sense. Obviously the speed limit will help. I'm also quite puzzled really about the democratic process in this case. From what I've seen on the online sort of thing that I described, you know, that I responded to, and I went back to it a few weeks or months later, and it had changed. And so I'm not sure quite how formal this process is, whether we're here trying to make a decision soon or whether this is just exploratory kind of feeling out, but it feels to me like we've got to get this properly actually bedded down into something definite, because it's hard to comment on something that moves. And in my inquiries with friends, I've not found anyone who's heard of this. I don't know what the sympathy is in the public arena. I know there's been a lot of feedback. I'm guessing the statistics are probably 1% of Christchurch have given feedback or something significant, but it's the 99% that concern me that are quite oblivious to this. That's my general experience from just talking with colleagues around this issue. What are you talking about? Never heard of it. Surely you're crazy. Where's this coming from? Most of them haven't seemed to have gone past that initial reaction to find out more. So in my sort of summary of the overall, I find the breadth of the proposals, at least the last version that I did study probably 2 months ago, pretty extraordinary. It'd be the biggest change I can think of that Christchurch would have made in my lifetime. Quite profound and significant, and in my book vastly overreaching in terms of any perception I have of need, and that it would be the type of decision where I'd be expecting a fairly high level democratic process, like potentially even a referendum or something that got tied in with a local body election or some sort of process that made sure that we actually had, I mean, if half Christchurch thought this was a great idea, I'm not going to stand in the way of it, but I don't feel like there's anything like that sort of groundswell of support evident, and that's really what I have to say.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tim. Tyler, you've got a question?
Yep, go ahead, Tim.
Just a couple of questions around your lived experience. Which area in Ireland are you living in at the moment? Sort of what?
If you know the university and Fenelton School, Cobham Intermediate, we've lived in Memorial Ave up for the last 10 years. We're currently in Clyde Road, quite close in that area as well, quite close to Medbury.
So they're quite fast areas there in Clyde Road, etc.
I don't find Clyde Road particularly fast. Usually when I'm driving through in the periods of rush hour traffic, it's quite quiet. There's not a lot of traffic where we are. Memorial Ave in our area was single lane, so it's mainly congested when I'm travelling through it as well. Further out, we've got Memorial Ave 2-laned at 60. Yes, that's fair enough. That's a faster area.
And do you use the protected cycle lanes when you're going to work, or
sometimes? I mean, obviously they don't go everywhere. I try to use Hagley Park quite a bit, but I'm relatively comfortable. As a cyclist, I'm quite strong. I tend to keep up with the moving traffic. I feel quite comfortable moving with the traffic in the normal sort of commuting times. I'm sometimes even going faster than the traffic, and then I've got issues trying to get around the stationary sort of obstructions.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Sorry, Andre, we are out of time. Are you all right? So thank you, Tim. Really appreciate you coming in and talking to us and taking the time to do that.
Thank you.
Alexa Kidd. Good morning and welcome. So you've got 5 minutes and your time starts when you're ready to start. Fire away.
Well, good morning, and thank you very much indeed for giving me this opportunity to speak to my very brief submission, really, but about limiting the speed on Maffey's and also on the cul-de-sac end of Santa Maria Avenue in Mount Pleasant. But I speak to you today, it seems a little indulgent to be talking just about the streets around the corner from where I live. So I speak to you today also as a doctor who works mainly at the moment with intellectually disabled adults who do not get the chance to speak for themselves, who do not get the chance to drive, and who walk often, a lot, as their only way of getting around. And they are often, through no fault of their own, quite impulsive. They may have behavioural problems. And reducing the speed limits on the roads is one huge step towards more equality for those who can't speak for themselves. I'm also a geneticist, a clinical geneticist, and I'm very used to thinking about risk and thinking about prevention. And we doctors, we don't want to be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff picking up preventable problems. We've got enough work to do with the unpreventable problems. But you guys are in a perfect position to set the environment right, to limit the accidents that are preventable. There's a lot of work, I understand, going on in Europe, and you'll all be very much aware. I don't want to trot out all the data you've heard before about the risk of dying when you hit a car at 30k per hour is 10% if you're an average person hitting an average car. If you're an old person hitting a ute, I'm sure it's a lot worse. And in Wales, I understand they're reducing the speeds right across all the suburban areas to 20 miles per hour, 30 kilometres per hour, which is something that I think we should work towards. Maffey's itself, though, is one of the 3 roads into the higher bits of Mount Pleasant. It's used more heavily than you might think. The main roads in are Solaris and Mount Pleasant Road. But Maffey's is the steepest, almost the steepest road in the whole of Christchurch. It is so steep that the pavement breaks into steps. If you don't like paying gym membership, come and walk up and down Maffey's a few times. The elderly who live on this street, and there are quite a lot, are incredibly fit in their 80s, and they walk up and down every night. They actually walk on the road, not on the pavement, because there's often obstructions. There's, on Mondays, the bins stay there the entire day. And so they're walking on the road. Cars are coming down. They can come down at 50k perfectly legally until they reach the corner where there is a speed limit of 20 on the way down and 25 on the way up. That's a long way down. There are parked cars on the right. There are blind entrances all the way up with cars reversing out. Now we have e-bikes, and a few brave people actually cycle up Maffeys as well as down. They wiggle across the road. My own cat was killed on Maffeys, so I feel quite personal about Maffeys. Another cat, incidentally, was hit outside our house and hit by a very nice lady who happened to be driving very slowly. And that particular cat ran off and was a bit stressed for a wee while, but actually survived. Speed kills. We all know that. So I guess when it comes to cul-de-sacs, I see no reason to go at 50k down any cul-de-sac. And I'd also put it to you that having an accident anywhere is terrible, and you're responsible, it would be terrible. But having an accident in which you hurt your neighbour's animal or your neighbour's grandmother is even worse. So it's kind of sensible for all of us to be very careful for that last mile or last half mile. So I guess I'd like to end there with asking you to think about the whole discussion about speeds in the neighbourhoods, not just from the point of view of those who are able to come and speak here, but also the people who can't speak for themselves.
Thank you. Oh, Tim, just quickly.
Yeah, like 'cause when you describe Maffeys Road, it's almost the same, or exactly the same as Dyer's Pass when you go straight down and then the sharp corner. So I can understand the logic there for 30k, but we a lot of the info that we've got here talks about death, but your thoughts on, because one of the, I guess, almost the worst thing is a head injury. So I know that people suddenly, if you've got a bike helmet, you're safe, but you're not. So being a professional in the healthcare, do you have any comment with regards to head injuries?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the cost to society, to the family, and particularly to the individual is absolutely huge. So anything we can do to prevent head injuries would be great.
And it doesn't take much, does it?
And it can be a lifelong cost. So thank you for coming in and speaking for those who can't speak for themselves. That's really, really good of you to do that. Thank you. Okay, Glenn Patterson, please. Hi, Glenn.
Good morning. Good morning, all.
So you have 5 minutes.
No, it won't take 5 minutes. I could almost borrow Tim's presentation and do that. My questions are around what's the mandate? I saw it the same as, and the whole discussion in my household with my wife and my adult children was, where the hell has this come from? On some inquiries, there was a comment came back to me that it was, I live in Gore Ave in Brynwa, our closer location to schools. The nearest schools are Wairaki Road, Fieldton and Cobham, which I would drive past every single day, and they're quite a long way away. And as other people have said, around sort of that school time, traffic's almost at a standstill anyway. If you used our street as an example, you literally have to come to a stop at the end of the street to go onto another road. So what is the point of slowing there and then going up? People are going to accelerate anyway. I also just follow up on Tim's comment about it causing unseen circumstances and frustrations. I travel to Akaroa regularly, and I've noticed the increase of poor driving on that road since the speed decrease. People are just getting completely frustrated. I went over there earlier this week, where the road speed limit's now 80, people are driving 60 and 70, where at 60 people are driving 50, which is infuriating people, and you can see them overtaking where they shouldn't do. So my concern is that you're looking to legislate for the lowest common denominator, and I understand the comment about people hearing impaired, sight impaired, movement impaired, pets and so on, but where does it stop and start? And that's where my point is. I don't think there's a mandate for it. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. So we've got time for some questions. Mel.
I was just wondering what disadvantage you could actually see to lower speeds.
People getting frustrated. Well, it's quite a big one. That will cause aggravation.
Andre, then Sarah.
Thank you. Maybe a tricky question to answer. One of my biggest observations in things like speed limits and many thousands of doors knocked is most people I speak with don't like lower speed limits and their commutes, but almost everyone I've met wants a lower speed limit in their own streets. Where do you see the compromise in that?
Well, I don't see that we need a lower speed limit in our street.
But
and it's a bit of a shortcut between
Yeah.
other streets, but it's been 50 k's for a long, long time. So we've probably lived there for 16 or 17 years. It's always been that.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah?
Thanks. It's a bit of an odd one. How do you weigh up a few minutes of delay and some potential frustration in drivers against the potential consequences to someone who gets hit by a car? I mean, do you think that drivers should be driving to the road code and there's a responsibility with holding a license and those kind of things? That outweighs a few moments frustration, if you like.
I see what you're saying, but the laws are there now. They just need to be enforced now. Where does it stop and start? Eventually, we've got issues with cycleways, so you're going to end up with, if you look around Hagley Park and the museum, it's causing a traffic issue already. You've got cycle lanes on cycle lanes, so it's just going to frustrate people. So it's not the dropping from 50 to 30 is so much. It's where do you stop and start? Are you going to end up like Wellington, where you're going to be eventually getting rid of all the vehicles in the city because people get run over by buses? Or
Without going to extremes though. If you look at just the local streets, not central city, and the fact that when we do travel surveys, for example, at schools, most kids want to bike or walk to school. But most parents don't think it's safe for them to do so. So you might not have many kids in your street biking, walking to school at the moment, but they want to. Parents want to let them, but they don't because they don't feel like the kids would be safe because there's too many cars on the road, and so they drive them. How do you get around that?
So will changing it to 30 change that for parents?
It's what the data shows, yeah.
Okay. And Tyrone, really quickly, as time's
Very
up.
quickly.
Very
Hey,
quick.
thanks for your presentation, Glenn. Do you have any just general comments on driver culture in Christchurch?
It's pretty average, but yeah, it could be better. But.
Great. Is that a good answer? Right. Thank you very much. It was a really good submission. Carrie Hunter, come to the table. Welcome. Is it Kari? Yep. Kari, yeah. Thanks for coming in. So fire away, you've got 5 minutes.
Kia ora koutou. It's a great idea to slow the traffic down around schools and in residential neighbourhoods, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into this plan. The main point I want to make is that it can be done simpler, cheaper, faster, and with better effect on traffic safety from collisions and from respiratory harm. Traffic safety is not just about collisions. We also have to ask, are we helping to keep people safe from floods like those that have been a rude wake-up call for many in the North Island? Are we keeping people safe from heat waves like the ones that have killed thousands in Europe and which could happen here? Are we keeping people safe from wildfires? Most of Lytton, a town in British Columbia not previously known for fires, was suddenly and unexpectedly razed to the ground in fires following a heat wave in 2021. Could something like that happen here? I strongly support the aims in the Council Safe Speed Neighbourhoods plan to reduce collision risks on the selected streets, especially for young people close to schools. If implemented and enforced, these measures could make a significant improvement over the current dangerous speed limits. You can make the plan better. I suggest 2 key improvements. First, make the speed limit 30k except for major thoroughfares where there are safe alternatives for active travellers and safe places for pedestrians to cross where they need to. You could do that and all of that in about a year. Then quickly moved on to cost-effective filtered permeability. This could bring many benefits: fewer speed transitions, fewer new signs, faster to install, and much lower cost. It'll be easier for motorists to know which speed zone they're in. New drivers won't have to change habits later. With effective enforcement of the lower speed limit, the streets would quickly become safer, more enjoyable, and more useful. The whole city would become safer for children, elders, people with mobility challenges, and active travellers. Fewer car trips could reduce congestion. Cleaner air for everyone. This is important since many more people die of respiratory diseases from vehicle exhausts than from collisions. We also need to address the biggest safety hazard on the streets, from our streets, the carbon emissions. The reduction in speed will reduce emissions. Limiting speeds to 30 kilometres an hour across most of the city from this year would reduce them further and faster compared with the proposed plan. The choice Ōtautaita is faced with is not between driving cars and active transport. It's between proactively reducing how much we drive and being forced into it. This is because the driving we do can be abruptly interrupted by the effects of climate change, for instance, by astronomical oil prices or supply chain disruptions, or as we've seen, sometimes roads get knocked out. We cannot rely on electric vehicles, biofuels and hydrogen except for a small part of the fleet because of major supply bottlenecks, environmental constraints and other problems for which there are no known solutions. The sooner we change systems for an active transport future, the better that future will be. By making streets safer for active transport now, the council would be supporting innovations. In some cities, people are using pedal vehicles, including cargo bikes, trikes and quadricycles, more and more, for everything from carrying children and groceries to carrying tools of trade, from portable food and drink stalls to last mile parcel delivery and more. To sum up, the council should plan for the inevitable reality of a city with a lot less motor traffic. The concept of safety should include protection from all harms caused by our traffic system, not just direct harm from collisions, but also indirect harm such as breathing exhaust fumes, social isolation, and the effects of climate disasters. You can make our streets and neighbourhoods safer, in this broad sense, more effectively and at lower cost by making 30k the default speed limit throughout Christchurch. To quote UN Secretary General Guterres, our world needs climate action on all fronts, everything, everywhere, all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really lovely. So 20 seconds left. Is there a question? I think not. So thank you very much for coming in. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well done. Is Emma Condliffe here?
No, I don't have Emma.
Hemi Innes? Hemi, oh, welcome. Melanie's here. Diane's been here for it. Welcome. You've got 5 minutes and you can kick away when you're ready.
Kia ora koutou councillors, ko Hemi Innes tōku ingoa. So I'm a resident of North New Brighton, as represented there on that map. My street borders with Kiwitu Park, which is home to 2 schools of Shirley Boys High School and Avonside Girls. Based on the design of my street and the other 2 which accompany it at the eastern end of the park, people, students, families and motorists use it for their convenience. However, more often than not, we encounter people speeding down our street and the ones neighbouring it to use as a shortcut to cut between the main passages of Bar Ave and Beach Road. Now, based on having lived there for the past 20 years, I have been witness to the unfortunate passing of animals, their injuries, speeding motorists and a car accident. Due to my street being within a 2-kilometre radius of about 6 schools within the area, and the nearby campus of Avonside Girls in Shirley, which houses around about 3,000 students, over on the QE2 campus. I'm concerned that someone may be harmed by the speeding of a motorist down my street, given that it is not included within the council's Safe Speeds program. Given that these people use it as a shortcut, our street is designed to be taken on quick speeds, along with the other two that accompany it. The proximity to QE2 Park, which, as you may be aware, houses a lot of events throughout the year, both sporting, cultural, festivals, what have you. I urge this council to encompass us within their plan so that we can reduce the likely harm of someone using the street, typically school students, from being hurt. As reflected in my submission, might I add, which received, I think, 20 likes. You can check that out. I would like to see a reduced speed along my street, and the other two accompanied along with traffic dampening measures in the form of speed bumps, because I believe that would be an effective way to reduce these motorists taking a shortcut from the main passageways leading into Brighton and Parklands. In conclusion, it should be further noted to the councillors that given the developments going on in New Brighton, we're sort of on that rise of new residential property coming in, we are seeing more people, and it is likely that more people will use the roads and shortcut through my street and the other two accompanying it. So thank you for your time. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. Is this your first time you've made a submission?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, first verbal.
Really well. It's
Yeah.
really, really good. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
We do have time for a question. Celeste.
Kia ora. Thank you so much for coming in. It's really good to hear from people. I just want to acknowledge that there are a number of challenges along some of the main arterial routes. Can you just speak? So, what did you say your street was?
So Flemington Avenue.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but you think Bower Road is one of the main challenges?
So the two main passageways are Bower Ave and Beach Road.
Yeah.
Yep.
And would you say speed is an issue with there's an increased number of pedestrians and cyclists? Is that the sort of, or is it just more people and there's faster speeds typically?
Yeah, so I would say the faster speeds, because based on the design of the street cutting through the two, people are typically using it for their convenience, so they want to get to and from as quick as possible, right? And then given all the campus over at Shirley and Avonside, plus the magnitude of QE2 for events, you see the risk.
Yeah,
with wide streets.
That's really helpful feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, and I also just thank you for the stuff you've done for our side of town too. Yeah, mihi to you. Cheers.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Awesome.
Have a good day. Okay. Emma Conliffe? No. Diane. Thanks for waiting, Diane. I know you've been sitting there for a wee while, so.
Oh, no, I was interested to hear what other people had to say, so no problem.
It is interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's just good to know. Good to know.
So you got 5 minutes, so kick away.
Okay, thanks for having me. First of all, I want to say that I think everyone here is doing their utmost, what they think is the best for the city. But at the same time, I think ideology has replaced common sense. And when I first saw this and I saw the idea of play streets, I thought, really? Do I have to speak about this? Little kids don't know the difference between one street and another, and you're teaching them to play on them? I've had big kids, in other words, university students, play on the street out front of my house. 3 doors away, there was a little park, but they had to play there. And everything was fine until it isn't, and a ball comes crashing through a window, and just luck had it that nobody got hurt by all the glass. So it's not just cars that are a problem. It's people that can be a problem. And the ideology. So school streets. Again, I mean, yeah, you're talking about parents wanting their kids to walk. I was privileged enough to be able to walk my kids to Island School. A lot of people are not privileged enough for that they have to take the car. And yeah, but to make parents park 2 or 3 blocks away in all kinds of weather, then they have to get maybe a toddler out of the back, and they have to make sure their kids, 1 or 2 kids going to school, I don't know how many, they've got all their stuff, they haven't forgotten their lunch, their project and everything else, then walk those blocks to the school, and then the mom has to come back to her car, so it's shifting the problem, and then to 2 or 3 blocks away, and then having to get into the car, take the toddler possibly to kindy, and then having to find her way to work. And there was a few men that did this, but predominantly it was women, let's face it. And, then there's these traffic calming measures, and the traffic isn't moving fast, so why is there traffic calming measures? And I'm not, people don't want to hit other people, they don't want to hit cyclists. So where's the data for all this? Where's the statistics? When my kids went to Island Primary for 9 years, and at that time, Island Road was a busy street, and students would travel down there, and they're not always conscious of little kids. But I don't remember of one child being hit by a car. I do remember them being terrorized by some of the university students, but not hit by a car. So some of the problems, if you read the Star newspaper, this is my favorite, teenage girls joyriding addiction, I just love it. A 13-year-old loves ram raiding. Maybe, and there's four headlines, 4 front page articles with 3 of them within 1 month. One article is all about violence, rampage leads to jail, and about violence on bike lanes and kids getting their bikes stolen from the school, getting beaten up and getting terrorized on the schools or near school property by those wanting to steal their bikes and other property. So again, where is it that the cars are the big bad thing around? Yes, sometimes accidents happen, but it's not just cars. So the statistics, where's your statistics in all this? Parents don't want their kids walking to school because of some of these things. At the malls, kids get beat up by other kids. So where's the statistics in all of these things? And 3-minute drop-off zones like at the airport are good. The parents can drop their kids off quickly and move on. And where is the welfare? Where you think, I know one of your sustainable development goals is welfare of the people of the city. Well, where is the welfare of this mother, or parent, or whoever you want to label them, dropping these kids off to school if they have to go through this whole charade every day in all kinds of weather? So I mean, all these ideas I feel are not coming. Yes, some of the ratepayers, they want slower speed things here, there, and everywhere, and that is fine, but a lot of these sustainable development goals are not coming from ratepayers. They're coming through LGNZ, which eventually it comes from the UN. And this is all public knowledge on websites. It's not a conspiracy theory or anything else. So who is really running the show here? Where are you getting your ideas from? Just one more quick thing is, a year ago, I went onto an online workshop called Libraries, the Future of Local Government. So as Wellington is taking away your water rights, the way to where you can build buildings and everything else, the future of local government is the library. So if you don't want to be glorified librarians, somehow you guys are going to have to work together a bit and work things out.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
That's very interesting. Okay, we now move on to Melanie Murchison. Sorry, Tyrone. And Ken. Welcome.
Thank you. Kia ora. My name is Melanie Mewison. I'm a Principal Transport and Road Safety Engineer with Stantec New Zealand. I am speaking on behalf of the University of Canterbury to their submission, and my role is their Transport Engineering and Road Safety Consultant. I am accompanied by Mr. Ken McEwen, who is the Manager of Security and Campus Community Support at the University of Canterbury. In principle, the University of Canterbury is supportive of the speed limit reductions within the Ilam suburb. In particular, the University is supportive of the reduction in speed limit to 30 kilometres per hour on Ilam Road between Maidstone Road and Kirkwood Avenue. To the immediate west of Ilam Road, surrounding Homestead Lane, the University has a large amount of student accommodation, which in recent years has grown and is likely to continue to grow with at least another hall of residence planned. Students also live in private accommodation in the wider area to the west of Ilam Road. Students and staff who use the Orbiter public transport service that travels along Waimari Road also walk through Homestead Lane and across Ilam Road to reach the main academic campus. As such, the university has a large number of students and staff crossing Ilam Road to access their main Ilam campus. Any mechanism such as speed limit reductions that would make pedestrian and other vulnerable user movements safer are supported. The university's campus straddles across a large section of Ilam Road from Maidstone Road to the north to just north of Roundtree Street to the south. The introduction of the major cycleways separated cycle lanes, together with the new and upgraded pedestrian crossings, have contributed to improved safety for vulnerable users in the area. However, risks still remain with motorists not abiding by the 40 km per hour speed limit, combined with the volume of students and staff crossing Ilam Road between their accommodation and or public transport services to the main campus. The impact of speed on crash outcomes is well documented in literature, and it is widely accepted that the lower speed vehicle speeds produce better vulnerable user outcomes in areas where there is where there is potential for conflict between users. So travel speeds of 30 kilometres per hour reduce the probability of a vulnerable user fatality to 10%. So lower travel speeds also facilitate shorter stopping distances, which are particularly beneficial in the university context, where there are several formal and informal pedestrian crossing points across Ilam Road, carrying the high volumes of vulnerable users. So we're talking about pedestrians, cyclists, skateboarders, scooter riders, etc. And these crossing points are at regular intervals during the day. The university is keen to understand how the actual operating speeds will be managed and would like to be part of the conversation with council where specific design solutions are needed to reinforce the lower speeds, and how that would also support more direct or formal crossing points for students connecting the east side of Ilam Road into the Homestead Lane area. The university's Ilam campus also has frontages onto both Kirkwood Avenue and Montana Avenue. Therefore, the university is supportive of the proposed 30 km per hour speed limit reductions on both of these roads, because they will provide a safer environment for all users, including the neighbouring schools. Similarly, the university support the proposed 30 km speed limit reductions on the roads surrounding the Dovedale campus, namely Dovedale, Solway and Parkstone Avenues. The Dovedale campus is undergoing a redevelopment over the next 3 years to create a new digital screen campus, in addition to the 2 established halls of residences. This will create more activity at this campus, and therefore the proposed reduced speed limit will improve safety for all who travel to this campus for work, study and accommodation. In 2021, the university recognised the need for lower speed limits on their Ilam and Dovedale campuses. They reviewed the speed limits on their internal campus road and car park network, and a campus-wide speed limit of 20 kilometres per hour was implemented to remove inconsistent speed limits and to create a safe environment for all. The proposed speed limit reductions on the Christchurch City Council transport network adjoining the university campus will complement the speed limit reduction initiatives implemented by the University of Canterbury. We thank you for the opportunity to be heard on these changes.
Oh, perfect timing. Thank you so much for coming in. Very good feedback. Thank you
very much.
Okay, we'll go ahead to Emma Woods, please. Good morning, Emma, and colleague.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to my submission. My name is Emma, and I've been a resident in the Linwood Bromley area for 19 years. This is Sarah, who you heard speak last week. She also lives on Thomas Street and has been instrumental in connecting residents, which is great, creating a great sense of community on our street. I was pleased to see that many of the smaller residential streets in our area have been included in the 30-kilometre limit, and that the 50-kilometre limit has been extended on Linwood Avenue to Hay Street, about 200 metres further east from where it currently ends near Eastgate. Traffic on Linwood Avenue can be very busy, creating severance in our community. On one side, there is a school, the park, a swimming pool, a church, community centre, the Linwood Resource Centre, and community gardens. On the other, there's a mall with a library, health centre, grocery store, and other shops. Many residents need to cross Linwood Ave to access these or to get to the bus stops on the other side, but it's difficult to cross, and the controlled crossings are about 1 kilometre apart. You often see people, including children and older people, trying to duck across when there's breaks in the traffic. I wonder, was there consideration to extend the 50k limit down to Hargood or even Digby? I've read that children can be seen as a type of indicator species. Their presence is a sign of a healthy habitat. Think about where you live. Do you see children walking or playing independently of adults? When children can move and play independently, it sends a message that the neighborhood is safe. Children are connectors in a neighborhood and that they benefit from these connections. I've recently been involved in the Wachitahi Play Streets, where residential streets are temporarily closed so children can play and residents can connect. At one of these events, I overheard an older woman say, "I didn't realize so many children lived in this neighborhood." It stood out for me. Why are so many of our streets empty of children, and what does that say about our communities? And as an aside to the previous Emma, I've recently done a dissertation on play streets, and it connects in with a lot of the antisocial behavior that she spoke about. So if you're out there listening somewhere, I'm happy to send that to you. Most of us know that the main deterrent for parents letting their children walk to school or play out is fear. Predominantly a fear of traffic, but also a fear of strangers. The two fears are connected. Without experience or connection in a neighborhood, everybody is a stranger. We know from decades of research that the volume and speed of traffic impacts connections between residents and influences whether people will use active transport or allow their children to play out. And with housing intensification, many children are growing up without backyards, so being able to play out safely in public spaces is vitally important. 13 years ago, I was walking home down Linwood Ave with my 2 young boys when a young driver lost control of his car, mounted the footpath, and hit the 3 of us. My eldest son was badly injured, my youngest was killed. The speed limit where we were hit was 60 kilometers, and it was determined that the driver was not speeding. If you're hit by a car doing 50, you have an 80% chance of being killed. At 30 kilometers, it drops to 10%. If we want people to feel safe walking or using active transport, then we need survivable speeds in areas where there are likely to be lots of different road users. Is it unrealistic to think that cars and pedestrians can safely share a space? Many of us do this already daily. Car parks usually have a limit of 10 kilometers, and pedestrians walk where they need to, with most drivers monitoring their behavior, sticking to the limit, and driving carefully. We have a shared understanding of what is needed in that environment and have established a culture for using that space. Most people follow the norms without thinking about it and without the need for enforcement. I've heard the argument that people aren't following speed limits now, so why will they follow them if they're dropped? But this is a separate issue. We don't make changes only when we can be sure that 100% of the people agree or will follow them. For those with the worst driving behaviors, there are options. The Right Track program has recently returned to Christchurch. This is a highly effective program for recidivist driving offenders. From my understanding, it has the highest non-reoffending rate of any program in the world. It works not by teaching driving skills, but by sharing knowledge, developing understanding, and creating a sense of connection and empathy for others. You're welcome to attend graduation later this month or any session if you like. Just get in touch for details. Thank you for the work you're doing. I don't envy your role, but it is important. I like the saying, you build the city for what you want, not what you have. I hope you continue to communicate the reasons for these changes and share that they go beyond one council's recommendation or one government's whim, that this is part of a global movement that is needed as we work to reduce carbon emissions establish active transport norms, and create communities which are connected, resilient, and safe for all ages.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you very much for coming in. And I like your referral to the global movement. This is not just about our city, it's about a global movement. And you, if anyone, has the highest and strongest mandate to come in here and talk to us. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. Right. Simon Britton, there you are. Wow. You're on.
So easy.
Morena.
Morena.
Are you ready to go, or do...
I'm great.
Okay.
All good, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm here today in my capacity as a resident of Barnes Road in Redwood. I'll come back to some of the comments that have been made on that road in a moment. I did just want to take councillors on a quick tour of this road. For those who are not familiar, this is at the north end of Redwood, just west of Main North Road. This is what it looks like turning into the street, if you're on a bicycle at least, and on a little bit of a lane. We're at the speed limit transitions currently from 60 kilometres an hour on Main North Road to 50 currently along the lengths of Barnes Road. Barnes Road, I'm told by residents who have been in the area a long time, was one of the first living streets constructed in Christchurch. As we move into the street, you'll see it's very narrow and has a kind of a chicane going on. Historically it was a normal sort of full width road like you see in that area. And there's been significant build-outs, as you can see. Sorry, the picture doesn't come up quite so well on the big screen. Build-outs to the left and then further down to the right, so cars can park nose in, narrows the street. In the street, don't have a measurement for it, but it's wide enough for two cars to pass if there's nobody parked there. There's a couple of cyclists on the right in this picture. It's a street that's pretty heavily used by cyclists. Living on the street, I see students from St Joseph School, St Bede's, Papanui High School, Casebrook Intermediate at least, that use the street on a regular basis. In the future, fingers crossed, it will have a really good connection through to the Northern Line cycleway, of course. Further along, for vehicles parked on the side of the road, as it is here, things narrow up a lot. There's only one room for one vehicle at a time to pass through the street. The other thing that, I was going to pause on the railway line. I haven't got a railway line photo in here. The railway line's further ahead than this, about halfway down the street. We have Barnes Reserve on the left, as it's taken in this photo. And just further along here, Aylsham Reserve on the right as well. And this is an area where a lot of pedestrians cross. There's a lot of people that walk in this area. It connects really nicely through to Regent's Park. And Barnes Reserve is part, of course, of the Northern Line cycleway, waiting at the moment for that connection between Starrocks and Tuckers Road to the south, which I anticipate will significantly increase cycle traffic, sort of connecting locally along this road, and will connect to the north as well. Another point to note further down here, recent years there's been a wee industrial development on the left, which is bringing increased commercial vehicles to the area, and there's a Noel Leeming distribution centre in there, so we see some larger trucks come through there. We've also got the local fire station only a couple of streets away, and at times we see fire appliances transit down here to and from. And towards the western end of the street, you can see there's some footpath here on the left. It's a pretty poor grade of service. Hopefully you've got these slides in your folder. You'll see them a little bit better than they're coming up here. Frequently there are vehicles parked on the left side of this road. Generally, I believe people that are working either in the retirement village at the end of the road or the wee industrial park further around the corner. There's a lot of damage to the grass. This is just coming back in the other direction. It's pretty common to see what you see here, which is a vehicle parked over the verge and fully over the pedestrian path as well. So pedestrians here, if they're out walking their dogs or doing whatever they want to do, got no option other than to walk on this very narrow 50 kilometre an hour stretch of road. So to submissions, I've just pulled up 4 comments here in this local area. The one on the top left is me, which comments on Barnes Road being narrow, a living street, and having poor pedestrian facilities, and requesting a reduction. That picked up some likes, reasonable ratio of likes to dislikes. As did another commenter just to the right, at the top right on this picture, asking for greater parts of the area to have reduced speeds. And a really couple of interesting comments on Starks Road as well, which is just to the south, particularly highlighting how busy that area is with sports in Redwood Park. And there's a fantastic comment there on Starks Road on the bottom right. Yeah, it's a relatively wide road with reasonably high speeds, and we got 68 likes and only 4 dislikes to a request for support in that area too. So, yeah, my ask as a resident is to please consider extending just a couple more streets to the north on this side of Redwood, the reduced speed area, to improve safety and amenity for residents.
Very clear and concise. Thank you, Simon.
Thank
We've
you,
got staff here recording your noting your submission and your key points, so they are taken on board. Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Cheers.
All right, and finally we have Stephen Wood, please. Welcome, Stephen. You've got your 5 minutes and start when you're ready.
Good morning. I'm speaking here today for Spokes Canterbury. The usual submissions coordinator that would be here is unavailable, and Scott. I've been involved with Spokes Canterbury I was involved when I was a student, but I've been away out of the city for something like 30 years. I'm also involved with the national body that Spokes Canterbury is involved with, Cycling Action Network. So just while we've made comments on specific areas on the interactive maps, what I'll do today is just talk about some general comments. I think it's been a good consultation process because the feedback is very broad. It's spatial in that it relates to individual places and people's neighbourhoods. Acknowledge that the council's added neighbourhoods into the Safer Speeds Network as a result of that consultation. And so, as I said, we're going to be, I will talk more about an overview. When I started thinking about what I was going to say, I thought first of pictures, and there's put 2 pictures in here. One's a cartoon from another country, but it gives an indication of what streets can seem like for people who are not in cars. And it's, I think it's from the States, but it's hard to tell because you can't see what side of the road people are driving on. But it's just a very graphic illustration of the fact that a lot of the space on streets is not available to people if you're not in a car. The other photo is from in the neighbourhood where I live. I'm a resident in Preston's Park in Burwood, and on some of the streets there, the developer and their contractors have actually have sponsored signs to ask people to drive slowly because they value their children. This is a diagram that I've included from some of Waka Kotahi's documentation. It's a bit complicated and complex and hard to read, but it's talking about classifying streets. And there's a grid in the centre which has got 2 axes, and up the side is axis labelled movement, so it's how important it is for transport on that street. And the one along the bottom is labelled place, so it's how important a sense of place or thing. So you've got different sorts of roads on that. The arterial roads are shown as right at the top left. So it's important to move people and not much of a sense of place. And there's various other streets around and around the edge, like main roads, urban hubs, and so on. The neighbourhood streets are shown near the bottom in the green there, and so there's not much of a sense of needing to move people, and nothing distinctive. So it's all very complicated, but basically it's saying that the streets should, it's horses for courses. Treat streets differently depending on what they're for. So in summing up, restricting speed is one of the most cost-effective ways of improving safety. Having speeds that are appropriate to the kind of uses of that street or road and the users in it. Reduces the incidence of crashes. I think the council should have good data on that because of the CBD having produced big decreases in the number of crashes, even when other areas in the CBD that haven't got speed restrictions have had increased crashes. We've heard several people say something about the survivability of crashes at different speeds, so I won't repeat that. And the other thing is that with lower speeds, you've got a better equity of access, that people who are not in cars have got better access to the streets. People cycling, people walking, people on mobility scooters or with impaired vision. It's all better for those with reduced things. Neighbourhoods are important in all your journeys. First mile, last mile. Where you start your journey, where you finish it. So around your home, residential areas, schools, libraries, you get improved cohesion and in neighbourhoods with lower speeds. We've heard other people say that. And part of the cycle network is that you can't have a cycleway on every street. You've got to have you've got to go back to Plan A of different users using the same space. There is an article by Simon Kingham summing all of these up with references, and I've left a reference to that at the bottom of the slide.
Excellent. That's a lovely quote to finish on. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate that. It's a good submission. That brings us to the end of our submitters today. So we have a resolution to move, second and pass before we might wind up today, and then we will go through to a workshop on Tuesday, a briefing, at which point we can bring in anything that we want noted or highlighted at that point, and that will then be built into a report that comes to council. Was it July, I think? Yeah. Sarah, have you got a question?
Yeah, just so process-wise, I mean, I've already sent a couple of bits through and had some to and fro. If people are wanting to make changes, what process do they use?
I think we're doing that at the briefing.
Okay,
what I
at the
believe.
workshop.
Yeah. So
Okay.
just don't fire anything through. I don't think at the moment. Is that? Otherwise, it's. I think it's
No,
more work
that's
for
fine.
staff in that way.
But are they being flagged as they go?
Yes, the staff have
Yeah.
been taking really good
Yeah,
notes.
that's good. I mean,
So
it's from these because there were other ones.
So just keep hold of what you. I've been making notes.
The other
as I've
thing,
been going along.
it's going to be really important when the communications goes out, because we've had a lot of people coming and asking us to do more and go further.
Yeah, I know that.
No,
Yeah.
can I just, so if we're able to communicate the next stage in the speed management plan with this stuff, rather than waiting till we do the next speed management plan, and just letting people know that we will be consulting again on the next stage and including.
Yeah, well, this is stuff we pick up on Tuesday, and
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
feed it in because
Yeah.
it's not. I've got lots of things I could throw
Yeah, I'm
in
just
here
aware
right
that this
now,
is
but we're not
public and that
going
won't
to.
be.
Yeah. So Sam.
So
Sort of similar series, but not as such. Is the briefing on Tuesday going to be public?
No, it's probably a breakdown of what we've picked up from the hearing, and then the report will come to a public meeting in July.
Shouldn't the briefing be public?
I don't think it requires to be, because what happens there is that the staff from a briefing will formalise
But
their
normally, you know-
recommendations, which will then come to a public meeting.
no. Normally the
Yeah,
deliberations
they'll
process is normally
formalise our
public.
recommendations from the briefing.
So through
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
chair,
What's
may
with
I-
Te
Yes,
kaha?
Megan.
Right. So, sorry. I think, Lynette's catching, but so ordinarily, this would have been a slightly different process, and deliberations would be in public, but they still will be. That's what will happen at the council meeting in July when you get the full report. What we just kind of need is a steer on what to put into that report, how you want to go. But you still will have your consideration and deliberations in public in that July, I think it's July meeting. But we're trying to
Maybe just to put it the other way, is there a reason why it can't be? I just think given the significance of it, I'm unclear as to why we can't just have the briefing
Well, there's a time issue really at the moment, and we're trying to. This is obviously a consultation that occurred quite some time ago, and for a number of reasons was delayed.
So the hearings are in public, the submissions are all in the public arena, and the report will come with our recommendations to a public meeting, and that's the process that we've got right now.
Great. Can we just leave it with the chair to resolve with stuff? My preference is for it to be public.
Yeah, okay. Victoria.
People know I support us.
Victoria had a hand up. Yep.
Can I just follow up on what Megan said, where she said ordinarily this would be a different process? Can someone just clarify to me what, because I haven't done this before, I don't know what's different that we're doing now to different before.
Hang on, Megan can answer that.
So I suppose the issue here is that, well, it's actually not. It's kind of the same process that you're using for the annual plan, really. But so the point of the briefing on Tuesday is just to receive any feedback about any changes, so that the officers can put it into a report, which then comes to council, and you have your whole debate, your consideration. You can still make amendments, and so you're not putting anything in stone. But we need to get some kind of guidance about whether the report is on the right track, whether the recommendations that that you've been hearing, you want to make any amendments. So it's following essentially the annual plan process, which is what we would do for a full council hearing.
Okay, Sarah?
I was just wondering whether it was possible, because I think about the Te Kaha Streets one, we met 5 times the panel. So none of that was live streamed, and much of it after the actual hearings was just toing and froing with staff, looking at changes we might like, giving direction, those kind of things. And I'm wondering if instead of closing the hearings today and then having a briefing, whether we could adjourn to the briefing time and then close it at the end of the briefing kind of thing, where we've given, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's if you want it in public, we can do it. There's no fundamental reason why it needs to be. It was just a timing, trying to move this along so we can get you to a decision.
It's still the same briefing
July.
day. It's just adjourning it till then rather than.
But I'll just need to check what time that will be. But we won't be able to live stream it.
No, that's fine.
Okay, we'll take that offline then, and we've noted the request.
But
I think
Pauline, you have to say when we're adjourning it to.
I think we will close the meeting today. And that's what we've planned to do, and we'll put the resolution.
Pauline, if you close it right now as a hearings panel, then we have to, if it's a public thing, we have to redo and actually advertise and those kind of things for the date for the briefing day. If you just say you're adjourning it to Tuesday at 1 o'clock or whenever it is, then we don't have to re-advertise and do all the secretariat stuff.
So I'm just looking at the run sheet for Tuesday now, and it is set for 11:45. So
for how long?
Until 12:30.
45 minutes. Okay.
Well, it's giving feedback and stuff, it's not.
All right. Okay. In that case, with the will of the committee, we will, or of the council, we will adjourn the meeting to 11:45 on Tuesday. That's your guidance. That's okay.
Fine. That's what the council wants to do.
No. Otherwise,
no.
Do you want those resolutions?
Well, they weren't
put then? No, because it comes at the end of the briefing.
We'll just adjourn. Oh, but no.
This one
we can still do these resolutions and still adjourn.
So okay.
If we could move these, please.
It would be helpful if we could move these. Okay. All right. Tim's moved. Sam is second. Any debate? Yanni's left, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Adjourned till the Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.